Hello. Welcome to LoFi Bedtime Very Tales. In this episode, I present to you a tale about a girl named Mary, who has some struggles with her anxiety and fears. There is a bit of a Halloween theme, but it is not a spooky story. I can assure you of that. If I were to compose a scary story, I think it may frighten everyone off, and I do not want to do that. Mary learns some lessons on how to better manage herself in this episode, and you may too by listening. Never be afraid to face your fears. Never. Never. Things are often much worse than they seem to be in our minds, my patient listener. Please believe in yourselves, as doing that shall always help you think, feel, and behave in a more positive and helpful manner. As always, please remember to do things today to make tomorrow better. Scary Mary. Mary was halfway into her 9th year, and she would remain 9 until her 10th birthday, which was about 6 months away if you care to do the arithmetic. Mary was excited to hit the double digits and believed that she would make it to the triple digits in her lifetime. Mary's grand desire was to be 137 years old, as it is a prime number, and she liked prime numbers. Not because they were only divisible by themselves and 1, but also because she thought prime was a fab adjective and it rhymed with her favorite fruit, which was also the color that is her favorite color. Her favorite color used to be blue, but that all changed one spectacular afternoon in the spring of her 7th year. Why, she had seen many plants blooming, and she determined that the shades of green she was witnessing were far more fascinating than blue, which is phenomenal in its own way, and it has firmly been in second place ever since. So Mary was 9 years old, and green was her color. Got it? Her eyes were too. Mary could also be a bit distracted at times. Mary would call herself Very Mary or Airy Mary or even Very Airy Mary, for she could be a bit out of it with an accelerated attitude that she did not have much gratitude for at times, despite feeling sensationally stupendous at times. When Mary was frustrated or vexed with herself or something, she would exhale out in the manner to which anyone who truly knew her became aware, as this could be considered to be her indicator of angst. And it sounded like Mary could be pretty hard on herself, and this was not regarded as helpful by her parents. They were tops, you see, as they only supported their only daughter and did not criticize her. Even when Mary was on the verge of a blunder, they did not intervene unless it would be a major mistake with continuous consequences, both emotional or like grape-flavored gum in her wavy hair or something sticky like that. Mary would call herself a work in progress, not a work in regress. Get it? She was always moving and grooving forward to be a more marvelous Mary. Isn't that something we should all be aspiring towards? I certainly am trying my best most moments, even when they seem to last as long as it takes for all of my mental molasses to drizzle off the spoon of the situation. Mary had a lot to think about with learning and her increasingly impressive imagination, too. There were times as she would think about something funny and then begin to think about things that were kind of connected to that thought and things that were not at all. Once she thought about how her computer updating seemed to only occur when she needed to use it, and then she thought about how her computer should have a name, and so she named it Brandy. And then she thought about how she knew someone with a dog named Brandy, but with an I instead of a Y at the end. And then she thought about how dogs should learn how to read so they can amuse themselves with knock-knock jokes. And then she remembered a joke she learned from a candy wrapper, and how she had told her mom the joke, and her mom giggled and bought her that candy the next time they were at the store. And then she thought of how she had seen someone drop a tomato on the floor in the produce section and walked away without picking it up. And then she thought of how that was not nice and that we should all be nice and use our manners because it's not hard to do. And then Brandy's update was finished. Mary had a series of duties at dusk to complete because her parents believed that this would assist her in better managing her time, so she may learn how to complete tasks in a precise, practical, and predictable manner. Mary's dad was a real routine person, and if this worked well for him, then perhaps it would work well for his delightfully distracted daughter. Her dad would wake up every morning at the same time and start chomping on his energy gum for jogging. It was named Runner's High, and he chewed this instead of drinking tea or coffee, for he asserted that it worked faster for him to get himself moving in the morning. There were many other things that he did, but this is Mary's story, remember? Very merry. Actually, Mary had snuck a stick of this candy confection once, and she had hidden it under her bed lamp. Her bed lamp was named Lorna. Don't ask me why, because Mary never told me. I keep asking. I won't give up. I won't give up. Mary had no real issue with completing these tasks, as they did make sense to her. She would stop all electronics 2 hours before bed. No digital clocks were allowed in the house, so the big and little hands were permanently in command. She would select her tomorrow clothes, not on weekends though, silly. May I call you silly? Or would you prefer that I address you as the alphabet whiz? Or would you prefer that I just return to the story? Anywaysy, after selecting her outfit for the future, Mary would then double-check that she had all of her schoolwork and academic accessories in her rucksack or backpack, if that's your thing. She would then floss her teeth like a boss, brush them like she was being graded on it, and then take her shower with her aromatic lavender soap, for it helped her calm down. Then she would tell her guinea pig, Millicent, good night and give her one treat. After that, her mom or dad or both, not her 15-year-old brother Barry, would bid her good night, and they would review the good parts of the day and speak on the good things for tomorrow. These things all flowed well together, and this fostered Mary to not get the bedtime jitters that typically presented on Sunday nights, or when she had to return to school, or had a big test or foot race on field day. Oh, how Mary loved field day! Everyone could wear casual athletic clothes, and they did many exhilarating activities. Mary was self-conscious about her running gait, as she thought she ran more like a bumbling bear than a graceful gazelle. Mary ran just fine. Remember, Mary could be hard on herself, and this was not helpful. Mary would remind herself time and time again to determine if a thought she was having was helpful or unhelpful, and if it were true or untrue. That simple thought process that she learned from her school counselor truly slowed things down for her and kept her on the road of reality and not the interstate of inaccuracy. Mary delighted in using her imagination for fun, but her ability to get distracted or tangential, combined with her extra energy, could supercharge her creative mind to make something that is not quite so bad and catapult it into a catastrophe that would quicken her heartbeat to the rate of a fearful finch. In all actuality, the morning that Mary wore a dark brown sock and black sock to school was nothing remarkable, but her bus ride to school had many nervous what-ifs at every stop and acceleration. The school bus driver, Miss Bertie, was a safe and unpredictable driver. She did like to whistle as she neared the school. Some other students found this behavior to be odd, while others whistled along in solidarity as they knew Miss Bertie was trying to help the students feel happy as they approached what may be a dreadfully difficult day filled with desiccated donuts, grody garlic bread, or stale soy burgers. Whoa! Back to Mary we go. Mary was critically concerned that Andre would notice her socks were off, but she could not ascertain as to why he mattered so much. Andre did not notice, for he was chatting it up with Brody and Nate. Mary thinks they were talking about how dinosaurs could never be a true friend, or some sort of philosophical discussion that went nowhere. Airy Mary. So it turned out that nobody, or never one, noticed that her socks were not the same shade of dark. Despite this small victory, Mary still was not able to let it go and let it be. Anytime she would think about it, she would still get a sprinkling sensation of anxiety that flavored her mood towards the skittish side. Very airy Mary knew that thinking about things that had helped her feel happy would do that too, but it seemed to be an effortless exercise for her to think in a nervous manner. Mary was going through her bedtime ritual. She had just finished her shower. Despite this opportunity to clarify her thoughts and mollify her mind for dream time, she was still a bit unfocused as she had 2 weeks until Halloween. Airy Mary had not yet made the final determination on her costume. To be completely honest, Mary had not made one decision other than it must be something that Andre would take notice of. Again, with the anticipation of Andre. Then she would speculate as to what perchance Andre would be donning on what is the holiday of Ha. After all, it is Halloween, not Bloween or Tra-la-la-ween. As Mary opened Millicent's cage to give her the bedtime treat, a banana bite, she heard a ruckus outside her window. Second floor, window open, but with a screen denying the chance for someone, or Millicent, to fall through. The cacophony was concerning, but ceased quickly. Mary looked out the window and saw that nothing was off. Just then she overheard Barry announce, "That alley cat is chasing raccoons again, or the other way around." This explanation helped Mary. She said to herself, "It's the right time for the nighttime, and it can be said that it's bedtime." Mary liked doing this as it slowed things down for her, and into bed she went. She thought about literature class and how the class was learning new things that would benefit them in communicating for the rest of their lives. And then her Halloween ensemble epiphany erupted. It would be simple to make and should be a conversation starter, too. Mary would take a white t-shirt and create an enormous semicolon with a permanent marker. She could then have 2 of her friends stand on each side of her and make a statement that she would be able to use as a function. She had a sparkling idea to help coach whomever be on either of her sides. She would tell one person to state, "Halloween is so sweet," and the other could remark, "It's almost as sweet as the candy we eat." She was teeming and beaming with positivity when all of a sudden she heard a savage shriek so severe that it had to have been from some sort of malevolent monster, depraved demon, or fiendish freak. Mary was now officially Scary Mary, quite possibly Very Scary Mary. She gripped her blanket and pulled it up over her eyes. It didn't happen again. Well, for a moment. Mary tried to distract herself by thinking of the new big word she had learned today. The word was discombobulate, and it meant something like to confuse. She had certainly experienced that, and she felt that way right now. She began to spell it in her mind. That slowed things right on down for her. Thinking about something that required a bit of concentration was helpful. Just as she was getting herself back to her normal rate of breathing, it happened again. The sound was not coming from within the house. What could the disquieting dissonance be? As with before, Brother Barry bellowed, "That cat has just discovered that he's not quite the tough guy he thinks he is. He just got sent his walking papers. I don't think he'll be back. He's okay, though. He's not hurt." Mary's mom then declared, "Barry, we appreciate your color commentary on this evening's backyard bout, but we all need to go to sleep. Good night." Barry returned with a sincere, "Sorry, Ma." Mary sat up in her bed, and with a reaction that made absolutely no sense whatsoever, she lifted up Lorna, snatched the energy gum, and began chewing it as though it were a race. 3 chomps in, and she knew it was a big mistake. The gum tasted like a salty lime that had been run over by a rusty bicycle in a muddy puddle on an April morning somewhere near a farm. The gum's texture was not unlike sandpaper that had been used to wipe off a stove that was caked in marinara sauce from a previous presidential administration. And worst of all, she remembered that her dad had asserted that munching on this nastiness for a few seconds was like drinking a cup of Uncle Joe's coffee. Uncle Joe's coffee was purported to resemble something like 20-weight or 30-weight motor oil, which was viscous and not vibrant unless you are into the whole abysmal darkness of black. Impulsive, airy Mary had gotten herself into a jam and was now getting tangential instead of simply spitting the gum out. Half a second later, she launched that gum right out of her mouth like it was an Olympic event. 10s from all the judges. She felt good for a second, and then she felt juiced. Oh, she had energy now. She thought of another word she had learned from a few days ago, lassitude, which means a lack of vigor, but this did nothing for her now, for she had more dynamism than ever, and she had to stay in her bed because she'd step on the gum, and it would then somehow get into her hair, and then she'd have to be an exclamation point for Halloween because her parents would have to cut her hair short, and then she'd be shorn like a sheep, and sheep smell so bad no one would want to be around her. Especially Andre. Yikes! Andre on the brain again. Mary let out her airs of agony as she lay there with her mind racing like it had never done before. Very airy Mary was able to seize onto one thought more than any other and ride it like it was a bucking, bruising bronco headed for the backyard barbecue in the back of her brain. Mary made a massive mistake, and she was calling herself every sort of stupid, every species of senseless, and every set of short-sighted that anyone could ever be. Just as you may surmise, this did not help her in the least and only fostered and fomented more fidgeting and flustering. Mary kept her eyes closed and tried to coach herself into calming herself down. She could always go tell her parents that she couldn't fall asleep and try to talk out the tension with them. They had always been there for her in these times, and the last time this happened was in May, so it had been a while. They wouldn't mind. They would be okay with her visit and be supportive of her. She decided that she would do it and felt pretty confident about it all. It was not her first foot to touch the floor, but the other that would locate the caffeinated confection that was supposed to be gum. She plucked it off her left foot's prominent arch and wrapped it in a freshly fetched facial tissue and dropped it into her trash can, Stanley. Stanley can keep a secret. No one will know what was in him. She cautiously opened her door and then realized she did not need to be that way at all. She had started to take a step out of her room and saw an almost formless, shadowy figure gliding up the stairs. It was not aware of her presence. She froze in fright. She felt as though her heart would burst out of her. Was she witnessing a ghost? It stopped for what seemed like an eternity. Mary held her breath, and tears began to fill her eyes. She had never been this terrified in her entire life. Just then she heard a clunk, and then a bad word that was uttered by no one other than Barry. The clunk turned into a syncopated beat as something was sliding its way down the steps. Mary declared. "Barry, you really spooked me. You're not supposed to be snacking this late, and that better not be the crunchy cashew butter I'm making a sandwich for lunch tomorrow." Barry sardonically spat. "I'm not, you little nerd. That's a jar of spicy pickles. I'm not a little kid anymore. And I ate the last piece of the French silk pie, so there's none left for you, Gary Larry." Barry would call Mary those names to annoy her. It used to work, but its effectiveness was not as consistent as it once was. Bravo to you, Mary. Mary did not continue the conversation and instead turned around and went right back to bed. She thought to herself that Barry could be such a ginormous jerk, and yet sometimes be so nice to her. She considered that he certainly could be capricious to her. Mary had become familiar with that word last week. She thought that if she ever had a cat, she would name it Capricious, or fickle, since cats are supposed to be finicky as well as furry. She couldn't have a cat for many reasons now, and she was okay with that. When Mary cogitated the word okay, this had calmed her a bit too. She'd get into bed and be able to figure it out. She'd nab the dictionary and use her time wisely so that she'd have units of language germinated from grandiloquence, bursting with bombast, or popping with pomposity to help her ameliorate her anxiety. Mary believed that her becoming familiar with words beyond her years was a certifiable confidence coup of sorts. At least that's what her mom announced when she gave her the high five that August afternoon when Mary had declared her intention to learn bigger words. Mary had started to get jittery about school resuming and was not able to decide which color she wanted her new backpack to be. She went with black, so the patches she would sew or iron onto it would be prominently pronounced. And that idea totally worked. No cap. Mary was thinking better and therefore feeling better. She would make this unexpected extension of the evening work for her, as she crept into her bed with her dictionary and orange highlighter. She had lost her yellow highlighter a few days ago and had comfortably capitulated it may be a castaway. She was able to let that go and let that be. Her mom would find the highlighter stuck in her blue jeans pocket just in time so that it would not change the color of everything that it was to be washed with in the load that day. But that's a whole other story. Mary sat up and wrapped her lavender blanket around her legs and tummy. She positively pondered as to how many words she may be able to produce for the upcoming weeks. She smiled. First time in hours. And then she felt something fuzzy and freaky advancing up her leg. Scary Mary jumped out of her bed and simultaneously shrieked like a banshee. Like the queen of the banshees. Like it was the epitome of how one would think a banshee would and should shriek. Is that descriptive enough for you? This sound signaled a code for her parents to present. Even Barry made it to her room in record time. Mary, quaking and shaking, pointed at her bed and declared there to be a beast under her cover. Her mom had taken her into her arms, and her dad, with a serious sense of caution, began to lift her bedspread. It was sunflowers, as her parents had gone to university where there are many sunflowers, and underneath the bedspread was Millicent. Yep, Millicent. Airy Mary had forgotten to close her cage after giving her her banana bite. Barry belched. Nice one, Mare, Mom instructed. Back to bed with you. And as Barry was walking down the hallway, Mom said with the objective of him overhearing, Now remember, your brother needed a nightlight and us to check in on him until he was 10 years. 5 months, and 3 days, so it's all okay, sweetie. Mary grinned and felt better. Dad had picked up Millicent and had placed her securely back into her home. Dad suggested, Perhaps we can have some blueberry pancakes in the morning with my famously fried purple potatoes. Mary added, As long as I can help. There's no riddle to the griddle for me, Mom stated. There's my young lady. Ready to let all this go and let all this be? Mary's mouth morphed into a genuine grin, for she knew that she had been tested tonight and she had made it through it all. Mary got into bed and her parents each kissed her adorable forehead. Wait. Have I neglected to mention just how charmingly cute Mary is? Oh, she is certainly destined to dazzle. There will be hearts broken across zip codes and time zones, and it will not be her fault, for she simply is a cordial, caring, and compassionate person. Airy author, that's me, back to Mary. As Mary closed her sparkling eyes for the last time that night, she thought to herself that she would discover a new word tomorrow that should define what she is doing. Persevere would be highlighted in 8 hours, 3 minutes, and 9 seconds, and Marvelous Mary would be born. Halloween was purely phenomenal. Andre did not know what a semicolon was, and Mary stopped thinking about him altogether. Mary thought that Andre would not even recognize an Oxford comma, even if it politely asked him to tea and biscuits. Mary continued to not think about things that were not true nor unhelpful, and she only spoke kindly to herself and praised herself whenever she would let anxiety leave her mind forever. Mary still exhaled out of negativity, but not with such a vigor as she had before. She'd never be Scary Mary or Very Airy Mary again. She believed in herself just as you should believe in you. I believe in you. And I wish the best for you.